On your left, Marvel Talk and Get Into Geek. We are talking, a big one. The first big movie release of 2025. Mitch here, joined by Captain Marvel Matty.
What's up?
And making her sophomore appearance on the pod, Rhys. How's it?
After one comment that said bring her back.
And that was you.
Was that your comment?
That was my brother.
Oh, that's good. Brilliant.
But
Excellent.
still, Mitch read the comments, guys.
Yeah. So just keep them coming through.
All of Rhys's other family members get on board.
Yeah. It won't be your mum though, right? Because your mum doesn't partake in the movie talk, and you said
No,
she's
she
not...
listened.
Oh,
My whole family listened. They all texted like, great episode.
I thought we doubled our numbers. Huge, massive. We got you at the end of last year, Rhys, and you were getting through some Marvel MCU watching. It was like early December, I want to say, and we knew this movie was coming up, and there were certain ways I thought maybe you were going to go to get there, because you end up watching Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? We got through that. So
Yes.
you done your homework. This is not an English podcast. You had completed your homework as far as Falcon goes, or now Captain America. So I guess we're coming into this, and you've seen The Incredible Hulk, because it turns out that's obviously plays somewhat of a big part in the backstory of this movie, which we'll go to talk about. So, Maddie,
I think when
big fan of
I
that.
spoke to you, I'd only watched up to the first Doctor Strange, so I still hadn't seen any of the Infinity War
or
or Endgame. And then obviously Endgame, he gets the shield.
Mm-hmm.
Chills. Literal chills. Talk about chills. Why was I getting emotional? I was like, Cap, he's got his happy ending.
Should have seen me and Maddie watching the, should I say it because it's an English podcast, Maddie and I, in the cinemas together, we're just like cradling each other.
Yeah.
Actually, my brother was involved too. My wife's just on the outer,
Yeah, it was like a 3-person man hug,
Yeah.
just
That's awesome.
all while facing the screen.
arms gripping each other's thighs, just squeezing.
I did Infinity War and Endgame in one sitting, and I tell you what, cinematic.
Jealous.
That actually,
Jealous.
I'm actually really jealous. You got to, for the first time. You didn't watch it at the cinemas, but you did watch it back to back.
I did.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just ponder for a minute, though, because we were watching it like 2018 when it came out, Infinity War. A year later, we get in Endgame. Just there's so much fun to be had. What if we were 12 months delayed again? Say Infinity War was 2019, and then the plan was in May 2020 to release Endgame. Imagine COVID happens and we didn't get Endgame, and they just weren't sure when they were going to release it. Because you think of the last James Bond movie, it was supposed to be like April 2020. And Universal made a very early call. We're going to push it back to the end of the year. That movie didn't end up coming out until the very end of 2021. So, like, it was a good 18-month delay. Actually, over 18 months delay. Imagine if we would have got that cliffhanger, somewhat, ending of Infinity War, and then we end up having to wait 2 years. Or imagine maybe the nerds would have combined then, if like the government would have said, you're not getting Endgame until everyone wears their goddamn masks and get the vaccine. And all the nerds are out there like, jab me! Jab me now!
COVID would have been done in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, we could have all had face masks that look like the Winter Soldier.
See?
Stop.
These ideas are so great.
Yeah.
You know?
And congratulations to you within the first 5 minutes of the podcast mentioning either James Bond or Lord of the Rings. So we can tick that off the
We might get to rings.
the bingo card.
I mean, this is a very this could be a long one, and there is room. There's a lot we could be talking about, but Captain America obviously came out last week. We've all finally seen it. I don't really want to throw you over to you guys straight up, so I'll first off the bat just go. I was the same. I liked it. I see a lot of the problems that people are complaining about with regards to like the reshoots, and that it feels a little bit sort of sticky taped together and things like that, and then it plays it a bit safe, and all the things that people are making these, Instagram reels and TikToks about how like heinously awful it is.
I haven't seen any of that.
Oh, it's just popping
That's all
up.
I've seen.
Thankfully, I see a couple,
seen.
and someone will be sampling them all and then coming out and going, actually, this is what I think, and it's actually not that bad. So that's how a lot of them are coming, is through a positive filter, but that's how their videos are starting. But I see all the complaints people are making, and I can agree with them, but it did not bother me as much. And this movie, like, it's not offensive in any way for, being slapped together, or if you didn't like this happening, or if this felt shoehorned or whatever, too convenient. For me, I come out, I can go 3 out of 5, and I feel really good about giving it 3 out of 5. It's a positive 3. Like, I know we're just over the halfway mark, but I think 3 out of 5 sits very comfortably for me. And the fact that you say Rotten Tomatoes, which I still don't think people fully understand how that even works, but when it was like 49%, or the lowest cinemas score, which, is kind of audience-based as well in there, blah, blah, blah. It does not deserve to be in the bottom 3 rated Marvel movies in the entire MCU. We're at movie number 5 at this point or something. Like, whatever we're at, that's some bullshit if you think it's bottom 3.
Yeah.
For me, it sits very calmly in the middle, and I'm fine with that. I really enjoyed it. I love Anthony Mackie. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier was great for him, giving him like 5 to 6 hours of really branching out and taking on the mantle. We very much could have went straight from Endgame into Captain America Brave New World, and we'll talk about the way that they kind of, very much explain to the audience that might not have watched the TV show how it all works. But for him to explore the character a little bit, when we get those moments in this show, and I'm like, I can feel your struggle still. Like, you thought you'd fully deserved it by the end of the TV show, but now you're facing like a global threat, and now you're really questioning yourself, going, hang on, I could handle some political jargon and the flag smashes from the show, but now that we're faced with like potentially a war between America and Japan, and we've got this leader freak, and then we've got the Red Hulk situation, he's actually starting to question, I'm not a super soldier. I'm actually not Steve. Like, I can do some of the job, but I can't do all of it. And I felt that a lot more because of the show, but I think that's where Mackie shines, is those character moments. Maybe we don't get enough of them in a movie that runs sub 2 hours. I would have loved to have seen this movie go for another 20 minutes and really flesh out some stuff and include a few extra deleted scenes that weren't deemed to make the cut. But I dug it. I had a lot of fun, and I can say that sounding like I'm only giving it 60% out of 100. That's fine. I dug it, and I will be absolutely going back to see it again, and I would be recommending other people to go and watch it and not read all the crap online and listen to the people going, it's an abomination, no pun intended, of the MCU. That's horseshit.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just really naive when it comes to the construction of films and stuff like that, but it didn't feel slapped together to me. I didn't notice reshoots. It all just kind of, to me, it flowed. It felt quite nicely. The only time I went, oh, that was a bit rough, is I think when you first see Joaquin sort of come in and land as Falcon after he takes out those guys kind of on the motorbikes in that.
Oh yeah, the opening scene. Yeah.
In that sort of tree line. The CGI of him landing was just a little rough. But other than that, I was into it. I really, really enjoyed it. I didn't feel reshoots or anything like that. So maybe I'm just too naive.
And we've been there for since the start, Rhys, whereas you've been getting into the Marvel thing over the last 12 months, I guess. Is that fair to say?
4 months.
Yeah, right, 4 months. You've done a real
Wow.
crash course. So I mean, you're seeing these in very quick succession. So you've seen this in a completely different way than what we have. So how did it go for you?
I feel like it was never going to be well received, being that Steve Rogers is no longer Cap. I feel like people are sometimes can get really protective over the OGs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think he's working against that right off the bat. But I really don't know. I don't know why it's getting hate. I saw lots of comments being like, oh, the CGI. You've got a massive Red Hulk dude who's smashing the ground. Do you want them to go build set and make up a makeshift Hulk suit and get someone actually smashing the ground? What do you want? That's my opinion on that.
And it's I would say if you compare Red Hulk to Hulk in the first Avengers film, I think they looked as good as each other.
To be honest, that's the best CGI in the whole movie. I think if they saved their money to make sure the Hulk looked great, I think it looked excellent.
Yeah.
I think Smart Hulk, obviously She-Hulk's a different thing, but that movie that show had to have budget because you had so much CGI
She-Hulk
creatures.
looks terrible. In terms of realism, it looks like a big CGI monster.
Yeah, but I guess it's supposed to just look like a giant green person as opposed to actual Smart Hulk, as we've come to know him. He still looked terrible. It's okay, it's a TV, but you even go back to Avengers Endgame, he looks good, but I think Red Hulk looks... I honestly, I thought the shadowing, the body hair, there's a lot of you can see that.
Forget Tom Holland. Red Hulk's chest hair made me feel things, and I was like, oh my, okay.
Hello, Han Solo.
Hello.
Yeah, but I feel like I can see the pores on his skin and the moisture in his skin, and I felt like the shadowing. I think that looked great. I can understand. And I've heard someone say this must have been an included scene in the reshoots, the actual aerial battle, the naval battle beside Tiamat, the Celestial, which that must have been a thing for you. We'll get to that in a second. But for poor old Rhys, who went into this movie having not seen Eternals, so literally you saw a 6 p.m. session and it 5:47. I'm like, okay, so there's this like thing that happens, and then this giant celestial comes in, and it stops, and then there's this
No, I
giant
was
head.
literally in the cinema. Trailers playing like this.
Just listening to it. And then you wrote back, okay, thanks. I'm like, that was 3 minutes. Like, I feel so sorry for you. And I hope that you didn't listen. Just went, okay, I'll just humor him and let him know that I listened.
No, I was like, okay, good. Because I haven't seen Incredible Hulk since like I was in primary school.
Yeah.
So-
Matty wishes he'd never seen it.
Oh, yeah,
so.
I avoid it. I
See, that's very mid for me too. I really enjoy the Incredible Hulk. So
I hate both of them. Even the Eric Bana one.
The Eric
I'm
Bana
like,
one,
ugh.
yeah. That's a very. I'm surprised that movie was what it was at the time that it was made, because we got X-Men in 2000, Spider-Man in 2002, then we had Daredevil at the beginning of 2003, and then we get Hulk in like June of 2003. So like we're getting these blockbustery type comic book movies with shiny colored characters and things and doing very superhero things, and then we get like a Greek tragedy directed by Ang Lee of the Hulk that was just a very different, like almost art house movie.
I feel like I remember it being very violent. Like I feel, again, I was 4 or 5, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like
you were
whatever.
probably 1 when that movie came out, though, like the original. Yeah.
But I wasn't that young. Maybe like 7 or 8. But like I feel like I remember that one specifically being like really violent. I don't know if it is, but I feel like I have never rewatched that one. The other Hulk one was like the DVD was run till it couldn't run anymore.
Yeah, okay.
Aaron and I abused. That's my brother. We abused that CD.
Yeah.
And the OG Spider-Man's like abused those CDs.
Yeah. So yeah, I've heard people say that like the naval battle was sort of thrown in as part of the reshoots and rewrites, where maybe it was trying to, I don't know, maybe they were completely replacing something that was there, or that they've sat down and went, hang on, there isn't a lot of action in this movie. And I've heard, again, different reports from different people that you read. So who's going to know the full story? Absolutely nobody, except for the people that do know it are never going to say anything. But that this is sort of thrown in. And so if it was a little bit more last minute, and it is very CGI heavy, you've got Falcon, you've got the new Captain America, both with their wings fighting against, there's 4 different jets flying around. There's naval ships on a sea with this giant celestial body hanging out of the ocean, like complete CGI for 10 minutes.
I think that was my favorite part of the movie too.
It was good. It was exciting. You loved the choreography of the sequence. Like that was all fine. That was all great. Even if I can let go of CGI not looking pitch perfect in those scenes, because there's a lot going on. And I'm like, as long as the story or the narrative of that scene works, and that worked fine for me. On itself, you can argue and sit there, it felt out of place in the movie, or that it was kind of a bit of a slap together sort of thing. That's a different conversation. But the scene itself, it's such a funny thing, I think, with people. Like the fact that there was so much hate going on towards this movie before it even released in the States. I'm like, who's actually seen this to be making these stupid videos saying how bad this is? Or are you just trying to get, onto a hot, hashtag item or something online going, Captain America is woke, Captain America sucks, Marvel's, gone to the shit, whatever it is, people are going to click on that. You know? So you go out there and say you love it, and you go, okay, well, prove it to me. Why do you love it? Yeah. I think it's shit. You got to tell me why it's good. If we were to come out now and go, it's terrible, and name the podcast that, people would listen to it because they already agree with us, and they want it. They want further proof why Marvel sucks, and it's just like, shut the. Can we just watch the movie?
I really, what I think I liked about it, and it happened in multiple spots throughout the film, is it subverted my expectation of what I thought was going to happen. Like during that aerial battle, which I love that kind of stuff. I love, I thought Ross was going to turn into the Red Hulk. The way they built that up, and I thought that was going to add to the complication of that battle, both the fight, but also the political backlash from that. If suddenly the Red Hulk just like bursts out of one of these aircraft carriers, but then he didn't. And then earlier on in the film, one of my favorite characters in this movie, Isaiah Bradley, I'm so glad they brought him back from Falcon and Winter Soldier, because I feel like the chemistry between Isaiah, Sam, and Joaquin was so good. It was kind of like this 3 generations kind of thing, and they all had they worked really well together. But after Isaiah attempts to kill the president and he's doing his runner and he's apprehended, I thought that scene was going to end very differently, because obviously, the Falcon and Winter Soldier set up the racial undertones of Isaiah and Sam and the the criticism they face both in world and then in our world as well. Yeah. I thought they were going to go full like George Floyd on Isaiah Bradley, and that was going to be like a kicking off point for Sam to, do whatever he needed to do. But it didn't. And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God. You
Yeah.
know, I didn't want them to sort of waste that character of Isaiah Bradley that early in the film.
Well, especially in a character point, like, you don't always get a nice goodbye, but generally speaking, you can see where someone's story arc has come to an end, and that would have felt premature to me. It might have worked in movie. This guy's just shot the president and ran away.
Yeah.
That he would have been shot. But I'm thinking, oh, don't do that to him. Like, we got introduced to him in episode maybe 2 or 3, whatever it was, of Falcon and Winter Soldier, just to have him explain his very sad backstory. Then for Sam to go back to him in episode 5, him still be like, this is bullshit. I don't believe in that. I'm anti-government. They're going to kill me. Why would a black man, no self-respecting black man would ever become Captain America and hold that shield and wear that costume?
Yeah.
And then only briefly at the end, he sort of was smiling at the TV because Sam proved that he could. And then we get him in this. He's kind of happy. He's outliving his life. And then he's brainwashed into killing the president and obviously doesn't, but then goes on the run and then he gets shot and he gets killed. And it's like, oh, what a horrible character arc. I'm so glad that didn't happen for you. I just wanted that for him. I love that actor. Carl Lumley, I'm a big Alias watcher from over 20 years ago. And he was in that. And
No, I don't think I know him from anything else.
Yeah, right.
I think I only
Oh,
know
that's
him
cool.
as Isaiah Bradley.
Yeah.
Just the heartbreaking thing, I think it was almost more heartbreaking in a way than if he had been shot, was when he was pinned down by all the security officers. And all he could say to them was, watch my suit, because that suit had so much sentimental value to him from whatever it's about taking his wife out or whatever it was.
Getting married in it, yeah.
Yeah, I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
Just him worrying about the condition of his suit. So
Yeah.
I kind of liked that moment at the end. It was a little bit cheesy, but I kind of liked the moment where he got out of prison and he got his freshly dry clean suit back. And I was like, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that whole White House scene was really well done. Again, the chemistry, Sam's conversation with the president, and him putting a hard word on about, hey, I've invited you here. You're going to put the Avengers together, right? Okay, now pose for a photo. It's like, oh, shit. He's becoming, or they want him to become the very thing that Sam doesn't want to become, which is a government puppet now, especially for someone like Ross, which in itself... I think I was saying to Rhys offline the other day, and I don't know whether I said it to you at any stage, Matt. I was sitting there in late October, early November, pre-American election, and just specifically, you can take out the real world consequences of either decision, but I was sitting there specifically thinking about this movie, and I'm like, which is the better political climate for this movie to release in? Where Trump isn't president or where Trump is president? And I can only assume that someone like General Ross is conservative, but certainly is, this guy who's going, as a general, as we've been introduced to him in Incredible Hulk, a very angry guy and doesn't want to listen to anybody else. And he's got his orders and he's got his own thoughts about how those orders need to be run and his own thoughts about the person that he's chasing, what he believes about them or whatnot. You get him again in Civil War, and he's handing down the Sokovia Accords. And so it's very much like, these are our rules and you live by them. There's no room for negotiating between the people that are actually out there, the superheroes that are on the Accords. And we didn't really get much of him and Black Widow to go off. So I'm thinking, what is the better political climate for this one to release in, where you've got a figure like Captain America who doesn't really want to do what the president says. The president wants him to be a tool, be a puppet, put the Avengers back together in the way that he wants and his vision. And Sam, very much like Steve Rogers would, says no, because Steve absolutely would have done that. And I love all this shit being thrown Anthony Mackie's way over the last couple of weeks with him coming out going, I don't think America should be one of his motives. It should be what American values were that Steve was a part of from the 1940s. What we envision America to be, that's what Captain America should stand for, not the America as it stands on today. And then tomorrow I represent America of tomorrow. I shouldn't just be a puppet and do whatever I'm told to do. I should do the right thing. And people going, Anthony Mackie's so woke and this movie's going to be a piece of shit. And I'm like, where are all y'all saying that? In part of the first Avengers where Steve, had his words to say against...
He literally was a puppet in the first film. He was a propaganda machine for World War II. That's why Captain America was created. And then that's when Steve Rogers went, no, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to stand for my own principles. And the name Captain America just stuck.
Yep.
That's all it was.
Yeah, he wanted it to represent something better than what he had. Winter Soldier,
Yeah.
they're like, this is what we're going to do. This is government control. This is protection. He's like, this is some bullshit, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is this is fear. I'm not going to go along with this. And then it turned out actually the government are half bad guys anyway because Hydra had infiltrated them and they never realised. Civil War, he ends up having to go on the run from the government because he doesn't believe in what the government are saying to do as a superhero. It's like he has always been against... If you really break it down, the majority of his time in this entire franchise, Steve Rogers as Captain America has been against government control and against the government orders. And yet we get Anthony Mackie doing it. It's like, wow. And like Rhys said, he's a different Captain America. And so all of a sudden people are naturally just going to be a little bit against him because we like Chris Evans. We like Steve Rogers. You know, we don't want someone else.
Because he's the blonde-haired, white-skinned, blue-eyed
Or is
Captain
he,
America.
or is it like and hopefully a lot of it is too, it's just people just not liking it, the fact that he's just not the OG, which, you know, I'm happy because I know that Captain America is a mantle that has been worn by Bucky, by Sam, by other people in the comics. But I would feel the same about... I don't want Batman on the big screen to be ever anyone except for Bruce Wayne. Like, he's my Batman. I want that to remain Batman. Just keep making stories about Bruce Wayne and have him have his Bat family and have that be the character arc and progression and all that sort of stuff. I don't know that I'm racing to... I don't understand what Batman Beyond is. I don't know that I need...
It's the future. It's old man.
Yeah.
Old man Bruce Wayne.
I know, but in a sense, I've never watched it. I've never read it. I don't know anything about it.
You should watch the cartoon. It's one of the better ones.
Yeah, but then I might have to change my mind.
You will.
And I'm just so anti-progressive, if you can't tell. So
you don't want to get woke. No, I think just on what you were saying about the political climate, I think, unfortunately, I don't think it would have mattered who was the American president at the time. I feel like either way, I feel like the conversation around this, unfortunately, has been about the introduction of the Israeli character, which I think is just... It's poor timing. As far as, you know, what our world is going through at the moment and everything going on over there. So I think it doesn't matter what political party would be in charge over there at the moment. The fact that they're sort of shining a light and trying to, you know, bring up this Israeli-based character, I think where a lot of the political backlash is going to be more than anything else, which I don't really know enough about the whole Israel-Palestine thing to feel like I can competently comment on it. But yeah, it does feel a little tone deaf to introduce this character in this film at this time.
You're of the Generation ZZ, are you not, Rhys? Right, you're a smart Gen Zer.
Yes.
Do you have much grasp on the whole Palestine Israel? Because I'm the same. I don't know enough about it, and people go, "Oh, we'll get research." It's like, well, where from? Because depending on where you read, the people that are on the other side of the argument will be like, well, that's biased towards them. And okay, well, I'll read yours. Well, then I'm biased to get, you know, I don't know. And that makes me an idiot and someone who doesn't follow enough political news about the world. And I should be probably dedicating more time to that than sitting down on repeat watching superhero movies. I don't know, but I don't know enough. But it's funny, after watching this movie, I'm like, oh, she had little to no impact on the entire thing. Like, they mentioned that she was Israeli born, and that's it, mate. Like,
so yeah, I remember us talking about that after the movie. Because Mitch and I had no idea who this character was, if she was someone that was based in the comics or if she was a new creation for the
I
film.
didn't either.
I looked it up, and she's basically she's a character named Sabra is the superhero name, and she was the first Jewish superhero.
Yeah, right.
And in the comics, she was a mutant, and she was, ironically, she was first introduced in Incredible Hulk. So it's kind of
works.
I feel like it works that they introduced her in this, because that was her first introduction. In those, but they've obviously just changed her story. As far as we can tell, she's not a mutant. She didn't seem to have any powers. She was just an ex. In the comics, she was ex Mossad, Israeli Special Services, or Secret Services, and whereas in this, she's ex Red Room. And that's why she was wearing. Because Mitch and I noticed in the film, like, there's one part where you see she's wearing like a black leather jacket with this absurd blue like pinstriping on it, like piping on it, and you're like, that's odd. And then later on in the film, she has almost what looks like the beginnings of like a superhero costume underneath, like this blue and silver or something like that. And that apparently is a throwback to her comic superhero costume.
Yeah. Now, depending on what you read online, people go, oh, it's too political. Other people say it wasn't political enough and that it played it safe. But that was something that you actually raised to me in your first feedback, that you actually liked the political nature of it, Rhys.
Yeah, I think it's copping a lot of hate, because I know that on my threads, people have been saying the movie's too on the nose, but I think they're just seeing a lot of similarities in their current climate over in America.
Yeah.
That we are obviously a little bit disconnected from, because we don't have the same. I think being on the verge of war and then, corrupt president is a little bit too much for some of them to handle.
Yeah.
I thought, and forgive me, that the introduction of that woman was to just like, you know, they like to bring in diversity in these films. And also, if you like think about it, she's one of the only women in the film.
I thought that too,
So I thought they were, and again, forgive me, I thought they were just ticking a box.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't assume I thought she was just random in the movie.
Yeah. You could have told me she was French and I would have been like, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, if they were really that worried about it, like, we read that she was cast and she is of that descent, I believe, anyway, the actual actress, which is good that we're not just hiring, you know, some English person to bung on an accent or anything. But if they really wanted to, if they were really that worried about it, they could have taken out that Israeli line and then no one would have, like, all this hatred going on. People, like you said, Marvel is so tone deaf to this whole thing, and then you go and watch it and go, oh, it actually had... There was no mention. But I'm wondering now, the fact that we saw her in like a CW TV superhero like leather jacket in one scene, I think it was on the boat with that naval battle, and then later on we saw her in the more sort of advanced tech looking suit. We didn't see her do anything in either of them. I'm wondering, did we get a lot of her cut from this movie?
I mean, I read somewhere apparently we were supposed to see more of the Serpent Society, like other members of the Serpent Society, and they got cut. So I wouldn't be surprised. I guess, you know, hindsight being 2020, I think what maybe would have been better is had the friend of Sam's, who was like the head of security. It was weird. They said that chick, the Mossad chick, was the head of his security, but I'm assuming the woman that was Sam's friend who was giving him, she was maybe just the head of his detail or something like that.
I don't know.
But it's like, I think it maybe would have been more interesting, given that he had a history with this other woman, that she had taken the role of the Israeli woman and actually been the one against, like those two friends were against each other, and then she did some investigating and...
or it was just right. So do you mean the friend of his take the place, or do you mean he's just straight up friends with the Israeli?
Well, no, obviously,
character.
Given the controversy around putting an Israeli character in there,
right.
I wonder if maybe the reason they did that is because in the comic she is a mutant, so maybe this was going to be a little thread they were going to lay down leading into the X-Men films coming whenever they were.
I
maybe...
hate that they're trying to put these two franchises together. Like,
yeah,
it actually really irks
I'm
me.
concerned. I'm concerned. I'm an X-Men stan, so I'm very concerned with that.
I said to Mitch, I was like, please don't think I'm dumb. I thought with the whole... let's reassemble the Avengers, they're setting her up to be the new Black Widow.
I had that kind of vibe too.
So I just assumed this will come back later.
Yeah, because obviously Chris Evans had Scarlett Johansson. He had a Black Widow there, as like she was in all of his films.
Just like jumping to the end, I thought when he was in the Blossoms and he was like, his wing got ripped off.
Oh, yep.
I thought we're going to see some action from Isaiah Bradley, which I feel like
that would have
we
been
deserve.
Cool.
I thought this other woman who was ex-Black Widow was going to come in, and then Joaquin was going to be okay. I thought we were going to have a mini potential nod at what the future Avengers might look like.
Yeah, right.
That's what I thought. I don't know if that's a little bit like, you know, wake up. I don't know, but like that's what I thought. And I thought we were robbed not seeing Isaiah Bradley. I feel like he's being portrayed now as like a weak individual. Like clearly he doesn't want to be involved. I get that. Why did we not see him in an action sequence? Why did we not see him try and break out of prison? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like we were robbed of not seeing him use his powers.
Yeah, there maybe could have been another scene in there in the same way I know I hate to bring it up, one of the Superman films, the Zack Snyder ones, where it's like Superman lets himself be put in handcuffs and taken away. And that's kind of a thing. Yeah, I think there would have been a nice moment for Isaiah, because there's one point where the Israeli chick is walking him through the thing, and he says, "You are not going to put me in a box." They want to put him into isolation for his own safety, and he says, "You are not putting me in a box." But then the next time we see him, he's in that box. So I feel like there would have been a nice scene there. He looks fine,
quote unquote fine, for whoever's, you know, been locked up. But I was just like, I feel like we've been robbed. I feel like he's been portrayed as like this weak older gentleman, but I think that's really far from the truth.
I thought what we're going to get is, because obviously we see I believe it's his grandson in Falcon and Winter Soldier. That character in the comics is a member of the Young Avengers. So that's where I thought the Isaiah thing was going to go. But that younger character, his grandson, wasn't even in the film.
I feel like he was at a point. I feel like I've. Oh no,
Oh,
sorry.
as in-
he was supposed to be, and
but
either
then
got
cut.
cut or maybe they never filmed it. But I feel
Yeah,
like
right.
at one stage there was going to be a place there.
Yeah.
But
This is definitely the only Marvel film I've seen where I'm like, give me more, give me more. The rest I'm like, that's long enough.
which was made and so much. And Matty talked about it when the Marvels came out. It was an hour and 45 minutes. Like, oh, buddy, like you're doing a sequel to essentially a sequel to Captain Marvel, and then you've got Line from WandaVision, her friend Tiona Paris's character. Miss Marvel was
Maria Rambeau.
Yeah.
That was really impressive, by the way.
And those two really are only coming from television. If you're just a purely movie watching member of the audience, so they've got a lot to sort of catch you up on, and then you've got this sort of alien threat, all this other stuff going on, and it's a big team up movie. It goes from an hour and 45 to that's far too short for the ambition this movie seems like it's going to be trying to set out for. And then when I opened up the app to book my tickets for this movie, I actually wasn't sure how long it went for, and it was like an hour and 57. I was like, oh boy, because that's with credits too. Like, what do we? Come on, guys. What are we worried about? Is it a mandate? Like, that's why I started to worry. Like, obviously, this movie had been rewritten and re-put together, but I wonder whether there was, you talking the Snyder thing, but post Snyder with the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League, that was very much public knowledge. The mandate: this has to run under 2 hours.
Controversially, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a sub 2 hour movie.
I'm okay with a sub 2 hour movie. But I think, say, something like Justice League, where you've got 6 characters, half of them they were introducing in that movie, and whether you like what they'd done before or not, it was going to be a very different movie than Zack Snyder's thing. But I think for a Justice League, you've got that many. Like, the first Avengers was like 2:20. If the first Avengers would have been an hour 55, absolutely go and root yourself. Like that, it's far too short. You need to let all the characters have their moments. So for this one, I think it could definitely work. I just think that there's a better version of this movie if it was. I want to say a touch longer, but maybe the deleted scenes aren't so much deleted from this narrative, but they're deleted from a different narrative than that we don't have that cut off anymore, because it would have made sense. I wanted more. I agree with Rhys. I would have wanted more.
But I thought the pacing was still great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you that I think there is a better version of this movie just by maybe re-editing or something like that and taking out some scenes, putting them in some other scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall pacing wise, I enjoyed it. I think the only couple of things I bumped into were after Joaquin gets taken down and Sam is in the room watching him, I got goosebumpy and I thought it was going to be Old Man Cap that actually walked into that room. And it ended up being Bucky. And I was like, no, that actually makes more sense. But I thought this was going to be our Old Man Cap moment.
I gasped.
We still haven't got resolution in a way to the Old Man Cap thing.
Now, you didn't rewatch Falcon Winter Soldier, did you?
I've seen it probably twice all the way through.
We both watched it when it came out.
They just say he's gone, right?
Yeah, he's gone. And he's like both Bucky and Sam talking at the same time. They're like, he's gone now.
Yeah.
And rewatching it only a handful of weeks ago, it felt a lot more definite. But I don't know whether that's just hindsight, because we've seen a crap ton of movies since then and TV shows. Not a lot have to do with Steve Rogers, if anything. But the fact that there has been no other mention of him in anything, and it felt a lot more definite to me that he died between Endgame and Falcon. Now, if they bring him back in a future thing, it won't be retconning anything, because they never said that he was dead. But that makes sense, because when you made an audible reaction to someone walking into the room, and then it was very quickly it was Bucky, and I was like, Jesus, Matty loves Bucky. And only at the end of the movie.
I do love Bucky.
No, I know
don't
you
get
do.
me wrong, I love Bucky.
But then the credits are rolling, and you're like, I really thought that was going to be Old Man Cap, and I'm like, oh.
No, I gasped as well.
That makes sense, yeah.
I was happy.
But you love Bucky.
I got shushed by the gentleman next to me because I went.
I love that you're in a 500-seat cinema and there was only 100 people in there, and you're still close enough to some idiot to tell you to shush. Like, go home, mate.
Yeah,
get
the
out
Cineplex people, chill out. Can I just
Crazy.
quickly, side note, first time at Cineplex, empty cinema, dude sits right next to me. I said...
Rude.
I didn't say. I looked, and then I shuffled, and then he's like... Oh, and he moved one seat over, and I was like, "That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking."
It's not that much to ask for.
I feel like that's an old man Mitch scenario where when Mitch is like 80 going to the movies by himself, that's going to be him, because he has the seat in the cinema that he wants to sit in. Where he's the Sheldon, where he's like, no, This is acoustically where it needs to be. I'm centered. This is, and if someone's sitting next to him, that's their problem. So I feel
really
like that would
funny.
be Mitch.
Well, yeah, would definitely be their problem.
But
Yes.
anyway, I was stoked to see Bucky.
Yeah.
If anything, what he said in his line about being Congress, I was like, no, this is going to piss me off. Like, what do you mean he's in Congress?
That was
now?
the other. Yeah, that was where I was getting to as well. It's like that was the thing I bumped into because I was like, oh, and I even turned to Mitch after. I was like, did they say that in Falcon and Winter Soldier? And Mitch was like, nope. So it is a weird thing because, and I think it's just the way they introduced it because they mentioned like his speechwriter first, and I was like, speechwriter? Why does Bucky have a speechwriter? And then said he's running for Congress, and I'm like, where did that come from? He is an assassin.
Did you also have the Thunderbolts trailer play prior to the Captain America screen? Oh, I see. We did.
I
That
haven't
was
seen it.
Oh,
I
it's not the
haven't
new
seen it.
trailer. It's the. I still haven't seen the Super Bowl one, which apparently is amazing. But for 30 seconds, but they had the original trailer play right before Brave New World. So I've known that movie's coming. I know which characters are in it. Great, sort of whatever. But then when Bucky shows up and says, "I'm running for Congress," I'm like, you're very much like one of the crew shooting and punching people in a movie that is set potentially only a couple of months after this one if we're to look at it as it's set when it's released. So
He's like
what
on the
happens?
campaign trail or
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, that's really weird. And I thought Valentina was going to show up in this, and that was going to be our lead into Thunderbolts. There was going to be something there, but we didn't.
See, I
get
thought
her
Bucky was
either.
going to come back too and be the Avengers
Yeah.
at the end. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Has to go
Well, no,
off and-
and that was the other thing. The other thing I bumped into was President Ross saying, "I want you to rebuild the Avengers." Now, the last time we kind of quote unquote saw the Avengers was at the end of Shang-Chi, where you're hologramming in Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner, and I think Wong maybe,
Yeah.
no, Wong was in person with it, and they're all kind of working the problem. And I'm like, well, this is the Avengers. Like the Avengers are still a
Captain
group.
Marvel, no. I hate Captain Marvel. I hate that movie so much.
So that's your bottom, is
I
it?
have
Yes.
I have a soft spot for the character of Carol Danvers. So I give both of those movies very, very wide leeway. So I
don't. Absolutely
I
not.
enjoy them.
Depends. Is Morbius and Madam Web Marvel?
How dare you get out of this room? Get out of here.
Because Captain Marvel.
Because I know what you think about Morbius, don't
sits
you?
with
Yeah.
them.
And I know what Maddie thinks about Jared Leto. So
Yeah.
Look, those movies, whatever, they are what they are.
They certainly are.
Look, when I first watched Captain Marvel, I had to replay it twice.
Mm.
I sat through the first 30 minutes for an hour and a half because I was like, what have I missed here? But technically,
Yeah.
chronologically, it's the second one.
Yeah.
So I was like, what have I missed?
It's
I've only
weird.
watched Captain America.
The edit is weird. The edit
That's
is
right.
very weird.
For anyone who hasn't picked up on that from our last pod or whatever, is that you went on and saw a letterbox review, list on
yeah.
how to watch the Marvel movies, and it was in chronological order. So
Yes.
that would have
right.
that would have made not a lot of sense.
Yeah,
to
no,
you.
that movie came out originally like after Endgame. Oh, no, in between.
Yeah.
In between Infinity War
a
and
couple of months
Endgame.
before Endgame.
She
Yeah.
pisses
Yeah.
me off in Endgame and she's like, you didn't have me. Oh, please. What are you going to do?
I mean, in fairness, she would have probably done a lot.
Yeah.
That's why they had to nuke her. In
Yeah,
this.
they
and
had
I hate her costume.
They had to nerf
I'd
her.
rather have Sam's ears hanging out all day than whatever her helmet is.
Yeah, the helmet's not great.
with
but
the
her-
mohawk, or yeah.
Yes.
The Marvel's costume was a big improvement.
Oh.
I
Look,
really
Brie
enjoyed her
Larson,
Marvels.
hats off, great performance. But the movie, nah, not for me.
Well, that's
Okay.
fresh because
Well,
a lot of people hate Brie Larson, so
Yeah.
that affects their view on Captain Marvel, the character, and the movie. I feel.
no, she's in Scott
So
Pilgrim. How could
here's-
you hate
I know-
her?
Oh, that song she sings in that is amazing. Context for why I love the character of Carol Danvers so much is you would have seen the original X-Men films with Anna Paquin as Rogue. And as you know, Rogue, she just kind of has the power to absorb people. So in the cartoon and in the comics, she actually was raised by Mystique. And was part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And she and Captain Marvel fought. And Rogue held on to Captain Marvel for too long, put her in a coma. And that's how Rogue in the cartoons and the comic books has flight and superpowers. She actually stole them from Captain Marvel and put Captain Marvel in a coma, and then has like an evil version of Carol Danvers like in her head that Professor Xavier had to like cordon off in her
Still
head.
hate
and
her.
stuff like
Sorry.
that. Well, all I'm
You
saying
didn't
is
sell me.
all I'm saying is when the X-Men are introduced into the MCU,
Nah,
you
can't.
might see Carol Danvers be put into a coma and then you'll never have to see her again.
Oh, they'll kind of
can't.
do with her like what they've done with Doctor Strange. It's like, we don't know when we're going to bring you back. He is coming back for one of the future Avengers movies, even if Benedict Cumberbatch
This is what
didn't
I
know.
hate. Like, you
But
can't just watch these movies. That's why I love Guardians, because you can watch the first two, no dramas. Third one, you have a little bit of drama, but
Yeah.
you just watch that that series.
What do you mean she's a different Gamora?
Yeah.
You could just watch that series.
Why is the blue one nice now?
Sorry, just side note, up on our TV screens, our morning show is showing footage, newly released footage of Daredevil Born Again. That is something Maddie and I are very excited. Well, I'm
Excellent.
definitely very excited about it. I think Maddie's on board it too.
You know,
but-
I
I'm on
watched-
board. But you know me with trailers these days. I can't trust trailers
yeah,
anymore.
Maddie doesn't
so-
believe the show's even coming out until March 4th. So
until it's out, it doesn't exist.
Seriously, March 4, I think it's America. March 5 here, mate. That is like 2 weeks away.
That gives me enough time to rewatch all of Daredevil and Defenders.
It gives you enough time. It gives me, it gives me enough time to remember.
I've been
Yeah.
watching Defenders. I'll tell you what, I watched She-Hulk.
rough.
And my only question to Mitch was, Daredevil and She-Hulk get busy? I was
Yeah.
like, what on earth is going
Daredevil
on?
fucks.
And then Mitch goes, that's not where I thought that was going.
No,
Yeah.
sure didn't. But if it was going to be a letterbox comment, that's absolutely where it was
Yeah.
going.
Oh, no, I missed out there.
Speaking of She-Hulk, I saw someone else's thoughts online today about this movie, and they said, wouldn't it have been fun if Isaiah Bradley's lawyer was She-Hulk? Because she
Fuck yes.
like, even if we didn't see a lot, but she was just like, just have Tatiana Maslany just rock up. We don't
Yeah.
even need
Yeah, that
She-Hulk.
would've been
We just
awesome.
have her there, and it's a great little tie for the fans of us that watch the show and know what her place is in that world. Great to see her continue, because she already says, I don't know when I'm coming back, probably not getting a second season, but to say, hey, no, not your fault. Fans are sometimes pricks. People complained, but you are an important place. And
But
this
that's
is-
the thing. Do you know what would have happened then? Is the fans would have used that as another bullet in their belt to say why this movie is bad, because they would say they're just rehashing the Spider-Man Far From Home moment with Matt Murdock with a quote-unquote inferior
less than.
character.
Yeah. That
It
would have.
also would have added to the loose ends, because I know you have an opinion on the fact
Well,
that people are calling this a loose ends
I had,
movie.
yeah, that was one review I saw very early and was calling it a loose ends movie. Now, when I first, I saw
God,
that.
you can't win because people whinge
Yeah.
that we haven't heard from about the Tiamat thing for 4 years, and now they finally address
Wait,
it.
were you guys happy with, like, because I didn't, well, you told me, like, I knew it was coming.
Well,
But, like, were you happy with how they've addressed it?
It was it wasn't it obviously is a very big thing, but it wasn't like the Celestial Island was this ongoing thread throughout the movie. It was just something that happened at the end. It was an effect of the cause that they didn't even know they were fighting. And then all of a sudden, giant celestial head and hand coming out of the ocean, and then the movie ends in a very different way. And then we've not heard anything about it. So it's it worked for me that it wasn't this big thing. It was just like, hey, yeah, there's a Celestial Island. There's some really cool like metal in there and shit. Let's start a war over it. It's like, oh, now we're bringing it back down to Earth. Let's fight over
I
resources.
think that's why
you know?
people also hate it. Yeah, because it's, like, classic that the nations would be fighting over
Well,
them.
and that's what I
Yes.
like. Like the fact that we got to something like Endgame or Infinity War, really. But you know, we have this alien creature come down with these 6 powers of creation that gave birth to the universe. He killed half of all living things across the entire universe. It's like, how do you make us care about like earthbound adventures now? And yet you get something like Brave New World, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of do give a shit about the fact that we're going to have nations going to war over a resource. Like, it's got nothing to do with space. I mean, it's a celestial island. It's a celestial body.
I think that's where
but
the Wakandians are so good, because they just leave their resource over there and no
I
one-
don't give a shit, mate.
I
know.
really value that. Like, they're just in their
Yeah.
own little world.
It is kind of the anti-Star Trek too, in that, you know, Earth had this cataclysmic event where we lost half of the planet, and then we managed to get them all back, and it's like no one's learnt from that, and there's it's not like it's a better world now. It's everyone's still arguing over the same thing.
Yeah, if anything, it makes it
Which I
worse
thought was-
because people have learnt all the more things that they can fight over and try and get control
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
yeah.
That
So,
was the thing. New World Order was the original name of this movie.
That's right.
And so it's not happening directly after something like Endgame. But if we are establishing, you know, something like Serpent Society, whatever they may have been in an original draft or version of this movie, you've got a new president coming in with very different ideals and ties to, you know, Avengers and back towards the beginning of the MCU. So New World Order probably made a lot. I mean, again, I would love to see what the movie New World Order is. You know, Brave
Yeah.
New World obviously is very rewritten and reshot and all that.
But also,
so,
what's the New World Order?
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, like, Cap wins and everything kind of goes back to the status quo. The president's in prison, yay. So it's like I think Brave New World is probably a better title in the long run.
I think so too. It just would have been a nice tie as well because episode 1 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, the title of that episode was New World Order.
Oh.
And obviously it was just talking about, well, this is the New World Order where we're separating people again and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So it would have been a nice tie-in, but a lot more people are seeing it and being aware of what it's called, and New World Order seems to mean something completely different in our current state or whatnot. So Brave New World seemed like a bit of a softer title, but I guess it does, it leaves it open, like you said, to a more positive ending when it's Brave New
What
World.
did you think of the whole mind control plot point? I think mind control to me would suit better for a X-Men. Like I thought I forget his name. The guy who's like
The leader.
The angry
leader.
guy. No,
Yeah.
the one who's angry. The one who's initiating all the mind control stuff.
Yeah, the leader, the green guy.
Sorry, him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know. He's more mutant to me. I don't know if that obviously gets touched on in Incredible Hulk, and I can't remember. But
Yeah, he got gamma irradiated. It's the same actor as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So same actor from Incredible Hulk. He got irradiated with some gamma radiation, and he explains in the film. He says, "I all that energy went to my brain, not to my body instead."
Yeah.
He didn't look great. That's not how I kind of view the leader. But
He
I
looks
actually
like
thought
the second X-Men movie, the start of it. He looked like that mutant,
Oh, Nightcrawler.
the shapeshifter one. Not the shape. He can like yeah.
Oh, the teleporter,
Teleporter.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I
that
thought
with
he
a-
looks
with
like
a-
him.
with a bit of a curly brain.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I thought like the whole like mind control thing was just a little bit interesting. I thought the fact that he's been giving it to the president in the tablets was
that was clever.
was better than I've looked at my phone screen and now this song's gonna trigger me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a little bit like,
I don't mind that part of it, like that. Because that's obviously something that can happen in real life. Like can at least manipulate you
like
a little bit.
like a post hypnotic suggestion.
Yeah, it
kind
might
of
not be
thing.
necessarily full brain control and.
Well, they kind of had it
brain-
in Black Widow, didn't they? The widows were mind controlled until they had to.
Yeah, off of the back of pheromone, wasn't it?
Yeah,
wasn't it?
something
That's
like
what she
that,
had to like
yeah.
block her. She had to break her nose to stop. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He had that control over her.
yes, I
I'd
do
forgotten about
recall
that element. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that's where I think that there is a better version of this movie, and people going in were like, oh, gee, it's going to have elements of the Winter Soldier and that sort of tone, and we're going to get a political thriller. And there are beats in the narrative that very much scream that. Like you think about Winter Soldier, once he escapes from S.H.I.E.L.D., once they say it's nothing to do with Hydra at that point, and they're just trying to capture him. Once he leaves there, we don't see him in a costume for well over an hour, I want to say, at that point. So it's him in an investigation in his jacket and his cap, the classic MCU disguise, and starter kit, as they say. And it's just he and Black Widow kicking around, and Sam eventually investigating what's going on. They find out about the Hydra sort of stuff, and there's not a lot of superhero stuff going on. There's action scenes, but there's not a lot of bright colors and triumphant themes or anything like that. And so it felt weird during this movie where, especially like Sam and Joaquin go on a drive, and there's no super suit, there's nothing. And then when he gets caught by Sidewinder and in the street, and it's like he has to beat this guy just with like a stick from the side of the road and throwing a brick at his head and stuff because he hasn't got his super suit. So there are elements that, but yeah, getting to the naval base and being off the grid, and then coming across the leader, and then getting arrested, and then having to sort of talk their way out of it with the military, and then getting on a ship, and then interrogating Sidewinder. Like there was a lot of the Winter Soldier like template to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I like the leader sort of stuff. Like the mind, it's not that they were mutants out there. They weren't sleeper agent mutants or alien shapeshifters or anything. It was just that he's been, like brainwashing them, to a comic book level, but using some real world sort of science, quote unquote.
I didn't mind any of that. I actually thought, I had no idea. I don't know if it was spoiled for either of you, but I had no idea the leader was going to be in this movie.
Really? Until you watched it?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know either.
I had no idea.
Oh, that's awesome. Because, I think very early on, they actually announced Tim Blake Nelson is coming back. And it was like,
idea.
oh, that's interesting. And
I mean, even if you'd said that name, I would have been like, who?
Yeah,
because I'm so like not a Hulk person.
Well, he's one of those guys anyway, that actor. He's like, he does, he's a character actor. Like, he's not a big name guy.
Yeah, so before it's revealed that it's Samuel Stearns, and there's a moment where we cut away and you just see someone with slightly green skin in a shadow with a green glowing eye, I thought that was going to be a more comic accurate look of one of the Serpent Society, because the Serpent Society are just a bunch of like snake themed villains, and they all kind of, some are just humans with augmented bits, some are actually like mutated where they look like a snake and stuff like that. So I thought we were going to lean more into the Serpent Society stuff kind of thing. So yeah, when it was revealed it was Leader, I was like, oh snap.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had no idea.
I had no idea what Serpent was, and I know that you'd be too young for this, Rhys, but do you remember, Matty, back in, I want to say 2014, they did a big slate reveal, and everyone's up on stage, they're talking about all their movies coming out, and Feige got up, I think he brought out Chris Evans, and they announced that in 2016, Captain America Serpent Society is coming out. Everyone lost their minds.
Yeah,
this is
I remember
amazing.
that.
And then that was at the start of the presentation apparently. And then at the end they go, anyway, we just want to talk again about Captain America Serpent Society. And then I don't know whether he addressed it or just behind him, the actual subtitle Serpent Society disappeared. And then Robert Downey Jr. walks out on stage and goes up towards Chris Evans, and it comes up Civil War, which is obviously one of the most iconic stories in the comics, and the audience lost their tiny minds, because then you had these two actors looking at each other, and then they brought out Chadwick Boseman. They announced him as Black Panther. They had the two actors, Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., like fighting over him, like as if he was going to fill the role that Spider-Man plays in the Civil War comic. And I was happy then, because I'm like, what the hell is like Serpent Society as a subtitle? Sounds stupid.
I've never heard of
No, I'll
that.
show you.
What the hell is
There's
Serpent
a picture
Society?
of
Oh yeah,
one of the
that's definitely
members of
something.
Serpent Society.
He's wearing like a cape
From the side
or a
angle I
hood.
got, looks like a
It-
Teenage
yeah.
Mutant Ninja Turtle.
He looks like
like-
he's wearing like a cobra outfit. It's,
Yeah, well,
it's
he's-
actually
Yeah,
something
that looks like
special.
a
Yeah,
turtle.
His name
Yeah.
is like King Cobra, and
Yeah,
then
right.
one of the other people is Bo a Constrictor. Like
Brilliant.
there's all these like pun
Right,
snake
right,
names.
Yeah.
And then there's like Sidewinder, and then in
Now-
Luke Cage we got Diamondback.
Oh, okay, he was one too.
Yeah, or
okay.
Cottonmouth or whatever it
Cottonmouth,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you know of Sidewinder, which was Giancarlo Esposito in this movie?
Nothing. I just
Okay.
know the Serpent Society as the gross sort of snake themed people.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
It. Yeah.
Because they didn't even really say it was just Serpent.
Serpent,
like the
yeah, they
terrorist
just
group
called it-
Serpent. So it's
Yeah.
like they're keeping it pretty broad. Like they could do something a little bit more sinister with it in the end, but otherwise, and even that, like with that, one of the rewrites was when they brought in Giancarlo, and they didn't reveal who he was playing, and he's been a fan cast for a while as being a slightly adjacent casting option for Professor X when they bring in, or the people.
I
like,
thought he was the Magneto.
well, I think people assumed that he would be Magneto because he plays villains very well.
Yeah.
But I think he came out and said, no, I would rather play Professor X
Oh,
because it
that's
would be
right.
very different for him
Yeah.
as a character choice, even if they did go down the more, twisted version of Xavier, him doing some shady shit. But he came out at one stage and said, no one will guess who I'm playing. It is nothing that no one has guessed it. And then eventually they revealed, oh, it's Sidewinder. And I don't think anyone had guessed that. So
No.
I had no idea about it. And then in this, I still don't get a great idea of what Serpent is, knowing that it's a comic book thing. But if you're just watching it as a movie, it's like, oh, there's a terrorist or like band of mercenaries, and they've been hired by this mysterious boss, ends up being the leader. So it works.
It's no different to the Ten Rings kind of thing. It's just this terrorist group. Obviously the Mandarin in the cartoons was this, green skinned maniacal guy with 10 magical rings on his fingers that have all these different elemental powers.
Yeah.
They changed that for the MCU. So they've done a similar thing here with Serpent, which is, fine to me. I think if you did try and have a bunch of snake themed villains with pun names, it would feel very CW superhero kind of movie. So
I'm glad that you guys said that, like with the stitching together, and you're not picking up on it, or it didn't feel like that as much, because I think, Giancarlo Esposito, his role being thrown in, I'd like to
pronounce his last name.
I know. I thought it was Esposito.
Yeah, me too.
But I heard someone else say Esposito, and I'm like, oh, that's so embarrassing. And then I went and Googled it, because I have Googled it before, and you listen to him, and it's more of a Jean rather than a John rather than a Jean. But Giancarlo Esposito. And I'm like, I think you could go either way, but I'm firmly in Esposito now, because I want to.
To be fair, that's an awesome name.
It is. It is magic. And watching him pronounce it, it's like put him and Denis Denis Villeneuve, the Dune director, put them two together and just have them saying each other's names.
Yeah.
That would just be magic to my ears. Is that, he came in late. And so I think it would be a fun thing to rewatch it now and try and see exactly where he was very much not in the room with Anthony Mackie, and I would say it is the majority of the time they had together. I can't remember how many shots they actually shared where they were both in the same frame in that fight on the street where a Sidewinder comes out and shoots it up. Yeah,
kind of stuff.
I want to say that they might have reshot that together, but otherwise, I think everything that Sidewinder is in, it's single shots.
True, because when
they're just keyed him in on a vague background.
Yeah, when they're having that conversation and they're like
Pre-naval fight?
at the secret base,
Yep.
they're kind of in shadow. They're kind of looking down that long tunnel and you see the two of them in shadow, and then they turn and face each other, and then you get the two shot. Yeah,
And like I've heard people talk about this going, look, they've enjoyed it, but it's probably one of the poorest directed Marvel movies, but then you've got the sketchy sort of rewrites that have to sort of then stitch together the film. But I think, especially for you two guys, and I felt very much the same at the time, like I think I can tell that you weren't there that day, or that scene felt like maybe it was an afterthought that works in the narrative, but feels like a bit of an afterthought. That it's still just it flows on enough. And I think that if you limited everyone's like TikToks for a week,
like dude, chill.
And people went out and watched it, and then all of a sudden you were told what to think.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be as many other copycats out there going, I knew it was going to be terrible. Yep, I called it.
Yeah, that's my gripe with the Letterboxd community.
Yeah.
I always say to you, dude, chill out. Like, can you just watch it and be like,
make your own opinions.
And my opinion is, maybe for a Marvel film, maybe it's not quite there. Just watch it, and you're like, oh, this is quite like a thrilling, like interesting. I mean, his outfit and the wings, mate. The wings,
so good.
Chills.
Yeah,
so good.
Oh,
chills.
Even if that was an afterthought, the scene that opening scene where like he straight shots down from the stratosphere, and I still don't know how that works for a very human man. Like
human legs.
The human legs. I want to say, I'm like, did the wings stop it? No, he didn't. He actually landed on his legs.
Breaking the sound barrier. I'm
yeah,
like, all
he's
right.
there. Go wait for it. It's like he's there for 5 seconds, and then like the sonic boom hits. I'm like, dude, you're human. I'm sorry. Like, this is 18 seconds into the movie. I want to believe a lot of this, but like, you were dead. But like, the fact that we see him at the end of Endgame, he gets the shield. So even if you don't watch the show, he's got the shield at the end. He's got a new costume. You're like, okay, cool. He's Cap.
Yeah.
But then they have to get, Joaquin sort of telling the other random soldier, why is his suit so cool? Oh, Wakandans gave it to him for helping out. Yeah, pretty cool. And you're like, okay, that's all I need to know. But even us having watched the show, we did see the Wakandan suit that he wore for the final episode, and he did some crazy awesome bloody action sequences there.
But he didn't have the
charge.
The charge, yeah.
No, we never saw
the
that.
Black Panther absorption of kinetic energy.
And it wasn't like his suit got damaged beyond belief at the end of that show that he then had to go and get a redo where then they souped it up a little bit. It was just like an afterthought, which, fine, save that sort of budget and effects up for the movie.
Yeah.
Because that looked cool.
When he like covered himself with the wings, I was like, damn.
Yeah. That's what I loved about this is because after literally the day after Mitch and I went and watched this, I watched Civil War, because it got me so excited again because I love Winter Soldier and Civil War. They're a couple of my favorites. And something that occurred to me...
Very brave of you to say that.
Watching that again, I'm like, oh yeah, Sam, at no point during Brave New World did I feel like they were trying to make Sam Steve. Like, Steve's fighting style, he's a brawler. And he uses his super strength and that kind of stuff to his advantage. Sam doesn't have any of that. So I love the fact that Sam's fighting style was much more acrobatic, and the creativity in this where, and Mitch and I both kind of reacted while we were watching the film, where he's using his jetpack to like give him extra strength, or the way he's using his wings both in an attack way but also defensively as well. Like, I really enjoyed all that.
Yeah, there's lots of combat in the earlier, like hand-to-hand combat in the earlier films, but this one they've like really used the technology.
Yeah, because it's like Sam.
Why not? You have it.
And Sam doesn't have the super strength. He's not a super soldier, so he has to rely on his wit and his speed and that kind of thing. And even the running joke in this is Joaquin wanting to learn that particular move, and that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, well, that's how Sam's got to fight because he didn't take the serum. So I thought that was really good. At no point did I feel like, they were trying to make Sam be like Steve in any way. They just happened to wear
and like
similar
Steve never
outfit.
questioned who he was and his role in Captain America, whereas the running theme is that Sam is like, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was a really special moment when Bucky comes in and it's like, dude, chill. You're fine. You're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
And then at the end, like I was saying to Mitch, I was like, Joaquin being like, I can't do this either. And I think Sam has a moment where he's like, oh, we're all feeling it. Like, we can never replicate the originals or like we're who we are. And like, I don't know, which is just such a basic message, but I really...
It's such a human thing. We all doubt ourselves at certain times. So I think that's universal. And I think that's a way that as an audience, we can connect with these characters, knowing that they have I mean, even Steve has had moments of self-doubt. Like during Civil War, there's the moment where... oh God, you make me do it again. We were talking about Sharon Carter.
Yeah.
Sharon. I always remember Peggy, but I always forget Sharon's name.
She wasn't in the film. I thought she might come back.
I got something else to say about that. Yep.
But the fact that she stood up at the memorial at the funeral and she was just like, no, for what you believe, you have to stand up for what you believe in, because Steve was doubting himself, and when it came to the Sokovia Accords and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a very universal thing. So I liked that they sort of they lent into that.
Yeah, it just felt like a really good moment where he's gonna realize, oh, it's not just me. Like we're all feeling it. Like
but he just has the added pressure of being given the mantle of Captain America, so he's putting that extra pressure.
And I do
on
love
himself.
that line where I can't quote it correctly, but he's battling the Hulk and he's like, "Screw Bucky, I do need the super soldier."
Yeah.
I love that line
because we'd all be like that. We'd all just be like, yeah, that would be really helpful right now.
Yeah.
He's like, Bucky doesn't know what he's talking about. I do need it.
And you talk about like the wings. We've seen him use like the jet power to help with his propulsion to make punches or kicks hurt a lot more, and we've seen it used defensively. And you saying Civil War, I still remember being in the cinema, and when he landed at that fight at the beginning of the movie, and then people start firing at him with machine guns, and the wings just like become this shield, and he's standing behind them just looking at his watch, just controlling Red Wing, like looking so calm, but in an instant his wings are providing this human shield. It looked incredible. But then like in this movie, they became so much more of an attacking weapon, and especially with the Hulk, because you're like, dude, you are not a super soldier, so what could you possibly have to...
He ripped the wing, and I was like...
Yeah, but prior to that, when he's like jumping up or flying past him or jumping over him, and he would just use those wings to just little cuts, and it was never going to stop him, but it was enough to piss him off, and you're like, well, maybe you're doing as much damage by pissing him off as you are trying to help yourself, but... And
then he ripped it, and I was like, shit.
Yeah, like, oh, he's screwed now.
Need to speed dial Shuri going, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's happened again. But that's what I know. I love, just to echo what you said. I love seeing the point of difference between heroes, especially in the action sequences. And I love seeing Falcon or New Cap do New Cap things that only he can do. Like there were moments in this. I don't know whether it was during the naval battle or whatnot, where I'm thinking, surely at this point, like, you're all hooked up with, Stark. Like, okay, Tony's gone, but Pepper's still out there. Rhodey's kicking around and whatever, God knows what happened to Rhodey and
Iron
whatever.
Patriot.
But,
Is he coming back?
Well, do we forget about Secret Invasion? Probably. We'd like to.
We could try.
We could try. He's got that tech, so like that tech is still being built, and we got the Wakandans that are helping out just a select group of our Avengers. Like, couldn't everyone just have like a vibranium suit at this point? Like, I'm glad they don't, but in the comics it makes sense because I'm looking at it in the same visual style, but this, I'm watching him get around and so much of his skin is exposed and the suit is only like bulletproof or anything proof to an extent. And I'm like, I just feel like you should have more protection at this point. And
again, inertia. His skin would be melting off his face.
That's so glad he actually had a helmet at the start.
Yeah.
Sure, it was the stupid nanotech.
I hated that helmet.
Everyone's got a helmet that can disappear behind them. Like I do,
Yeah.
I don't like that Ant-Man's got it and that Quill's got it and that, that Iron Man obviously has had it for a long time and that looks really cool, but it can completely disappear. I just liked when it opened. Like, keep a little bit of realism.
Going back and rewatching Civil War, it's like when Ant-Man goes giant and then gets shrunk down, he just like pops the faceplate off and he's physically wearing a helmet.
Yes.
And he has the line about orange slices. And I'm like, I miss that kind of look.
I love it so much better. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Sharon thing, the She-Hulk, not theory, but idea that I referenced before, the same person said, would it not have been, if they didn't do to Sharon or maybe even with what they did, I guess you could have both. This person said, if they didn't do to Sharon what they did in Falcon and Winter Soldier and made her the power broker, could she have been the Israeli she could have been Ross's head of security and still keeping that Carter thing, still keeping someone who knew old Captain America, believed in him, but has had problems with new Cap, and just provide that initial resistance between Sam and Ross, and then eventually doing what she did for Steve, helping out along the way.
Yeah.
But I sort of took that a bit further going, yeah, well, they couldn't do that because she's the power broker. What if they did that because she was the power broker? Now, again, she was on the run for a couple of years. I know they wiped her slate clean, but would that not have been a bit more interesting for those of us that watch the TV show? You imagine being a movie watcher. They only see Sharon Carter being a little cutesy. She's actually an agent in Winter Soldier. Then in Civil War, she throws everything on the line, gets the shield for Cap. The movie ends. We don't know what happened to her. She's back in this, and she's the head of security for the new president. Great. But then if you as a TV watcher know, no, she's this secret villain now that not even our heroes know about. She's working for the president, and she's still against our guys trying to do what they're trying to do. I just think that would have complicated that to, I don't know, a much tastier level. There's certainly room for... the character that I'm still not familiar with of the comics, but Sabra.
Yeah.
But and obviously what they will eventually do with her. But I can't help but think just to make it more Captain America. It would have been her third appearance in 4 Captain America movies. It would have kept it very much in that franchise.
I think that would have been great, because I think one of the things that worked the most when it comes to Winter Soldier is that it's like, well, we know these characters, like it's like Steven and Natasha have a history, so you don't have to build that. And it's like Sam was the new one that came into that, and obviously we learned about Bucky. So it's like in this, it's like, yeah, we only got a little bit of Joaquin, and unless you watch the show, we don't know much about Isaiah. So he didn't have a lot of people to play off. Like Sam's main sort of quote unquote sidekick is Bucky, and they only had one scene together. So I think, bringing in Sharon would have been really, really great. And I think incorporating more of that other Secret Service agent, I think, because she kind of disappeared towards the end of the film.
I'd like to see her
Didn't
get a
really have
positive
anything.
outcome, because she low key falls in love with Steve a little bit or whatever. Gone. He's not interested. And then,
sorry, I've kissed you, but I'm hooking up with your auntie in the past.
And then
collecting the set like Infinity Stones.
So Interstellar, he goes to the old woman, and you're just like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then like she's obviously been in foreign countries, just like laying low. I feel bad for her. Like, bring her back. I thought she could go under like Nick Fury's wing, become like the new Nick Fury. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be cool. I have a feeling the reason they did Sabra, given that I now know that she is a mutant, because obviously the other big thing reveal we get in this movie is the metal that they're harvesting from Tiamat is adamantium, which is what Wolverine's claws and skeleton are made of. So I think that's maybe they were just trying to set up a few little things for the X-Men going forward.
Grown.
Yeah.
Grown.
Yeah, because it is weird to me that...
Yeah, can we talk about that? Cause
yeah, well, I guess in a way...
Fine for you, because you're new to all this and you're coming at it from an opinion that I don't know the context of it, Rhys. Whereas Matty loves your X-Men.
They're my number one.
They're your number one.
Oh, I love X-Men.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because they're all part of the same sandbox in Marvel, in the comic books and stuff.
No.
So
yeah, they were part of Civil War in the comics.
That is so infuriating.
Yeah. Because if you think about, if you watch the first, I think the first or the second, no, maybe it must be the first X-Men movie where like Jean Grey's come and they're talking about a mutant registry, that actually kind of ties into the whole Sokovia Accords where anyone with superpowers has to register. So it's kind of the same story that they were telling.
And you clearly weren't there on the day. I want to say, early 2015. I still remember I was sitting at home watching the latest episode of The Walking Dead with my wife.
I was in year 8. Would have been in science class in the Bunsen burner.
Well, sure.
Wow.
You and the
Felt
Bunsen
older.
burner. And I'm opening up an article on my phone because it was like, Spider-Man's joining Civil War. Marvel have the rights to use the character. And I'm like, oh my God!
Yeah.
And I'm like, Matty, Spider-Man's in the MCU! Because like only 6 months earlier, they're like, Black Panther's going to take on the role that Spider-Man would have otherwise kind of had, within that storyline. And it was like, no, they've done a new deal. Sorry, Andrew Garfield, you had your time that ended 6 months ago with a really bad movie. Unfortunately, you were great.
Don't get the hate on that movie either.
Amazing Spider-Man 2. You're on that island by yourself. As far as
that was bad.
Okay, maybe we're all seeing something I'm not. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I love Paul Giamatti, but the Spidey Rhino. No, thanks. We move on from that. But that was a moment. And so then when I love telling my kids now that the idea of like Marvel and these different characters and like how they're owned by different movie studios, and I said, well, they can't be in this because these other people own them. I said, so you know what Disney did? And James is like, what? He's my 12-year-old. And I said, well, Disney bought the other company that owns those movie rights. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, just bought it for like $70 billion, man. No big deal. So now they can use and so I was
Trying
happy.
to explain intellectual property to your 8-year-old.
Yeah,
That's gonna be
yeah.
interesting.
And my family got brothers-in-law that work in like, corporate takeovers and companies very much buying other companies and how that is broken. And like, I could have asked them and said, how does this work on a business level and how long is this going to take? Like, is it years and years and years of paperwork and working out, the sort of shell companies underneath and all that sort of stuff. But all I'm sitting here is thinking, when did my X-Men get to be used in the MCU?
Yeah.
Because, look, I agree because the longer it goes on, I'm also a big Blade fan. And Blade does now belong to Marvel. And they've been trying to make that thing something for a couple of years. At what point can you make Blade and go...
They set it up at the end of the Eternals.
Well, sure, yeah. Blade has already appeared, voiceover only, in the MCU. So that's something. Stick around for that post-credit scene. By the way, she doesn't watch post-credit scenes.
You make me sick. Get out.
You do actually make me sick.
I realised I did watch one. I watched the...
Did you watch this one? We'll talk about it later. Okay,
yes.
good.
There was people sitting behind us in our screening who left before. I mean, granted, the post-credit scenes in this ones were pretty weak.
Yeah.
But...
I had seen the Infinity War because Nick Fury goes.
Because that was a great
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Can I just say, I had 3 notes for WandaVision, and my top note was having Evan Peters in there infuriated me. Feels like a reach to connect X-Men and Marvel.
Yeah, you know...
He doesn't seem to know who he is. He just seems to be a resident, and it's purely circumstantial.
I mean, he didn't, and it
was bizarre.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote.
True.
Look,
true. I hated him being in that. Yeah.
When that
Thank
happened, because it was a
you.
post, the final moments of episode 3 or 4, that blew my... I'm like,
No, she opened the door, I went...
That's what I thought. I'm like, is this how we get the X-Men? Is she going to, like, with her reality manipulating powers, is this how we're doing it? And obviously it wasn't. So it just became this thing only for the fans, which is infuriating when you think about it from a narrative point of view.
It would have been funnier if he didn't... Like, it would have made more sense if he didn't exist. Like, he wasn't an actual character. Like, he was completely created for within the Hex. Because obviously the meta kind of idea behind it is in sitcoms when they recast characters. And it's like, well, playing the role of Wanda's brother instead of being old mate.
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Who's not Silver Surfer news to me.
Last week she's her and her brother are Silver Surfer, and I'm like, I need to correct you so badly.
Oh boy.
Silver's right, but the other half isn't.
Yeah, so it was kind of supposed to be a meta take on that, is that, the role of Quicksilver will now be played by me. That was funny, but the fact that he was a real person in the town and his name was Boner, I was just like, no, can't have that.
No,
I hated it.
That's fair enough.
Just going back to the adamantium for a second.
Yeah.
That is weird, but exciting, but also weird. Because obviously it's from memory... from the comics and stuff like that, adamantium was a human-made product of it was like part vibranium, part titanium. It was like dumb humans who aren't from Wakanda trying to figure out how to work with vibranium.
Yeah, right.
And they come up with adamantium. So it is interesting that, adamantium is now something naturally occurring inside Tiamat, which I think is fun because that ties into the lore of Wakanda in the MCU, where it was an asteroid that came down that contained all the vibranium in it. So that's fun. But obviously what that kind of means now is that only sometime in the last 4 years, or potentially, only after now, can the Weapon X project come into being. And so at this point, technically at this point in the world, if there is a Wolverine, like if there is a Logan in this world walking around, he's still got bone claws.
Well, okay, on that, we
so
talk
that would be
about
interesting to see.
She-Hulk was the only time that Tiamat has ever been referenced. There is like a brief shot of a newspaper or an online article or something, like an online news site, and one of the site, like other clickable stories down the side of the page, one of them says, something giant hand sticking out of the thing, like people were referencing, and it's like, oh my god, they're actually saying Eternals happened. Because my big thing was like, Eternals could be set 5 years in the future. Like, stop worrying about it until we don't know. Just calm down. And the other one was man wearing metal claws, a man with metal claws in bar fight or something. Oh. So and people are like, holy shit, they reference now.
Is that the first movie? That's a reference to the first movie, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I guess
X-Men
it might not be referencing that exact movie or that scene, but it's certainly that we as fans know something like that. But like they could go, no, that was just a thing, like a guy when
Yeah.
they're wearing claws. Who cares? But I was thinking the same thing. It's like, oh, we don't have the long-standing, project that gave birth
Yeah,
to
the Weapon X
Wolverine
program,
in
Alpha Flight.
in that. I mean, they could it could happen. Be happening right now. We saw Captain America a week later. Whoever has got that, and they're already experimenting on it. And then when X-Men comes out in 4 years, Wolverine's just been walking around with his metal claws only for 4 years, as opposed to 14 or 20 or something like that. Like, I don't know. I know in the movies, in that world, before the events of X-Men #1, that X-Men Origins had happened 20 years prior to that, or whatever it ended up being, 15 years or something. So I don't know whether that's a gap that has come from the comics, or if it's, it can be anything you want it to be. But
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when Wolverine first appeared in the Hulk comics, the claws were part of his gloves. They didn't even come out of his body. He just had claws attached to his gloves. So yeah, they can do anything they want. But
Oh,
yeah,
well, we all know that X-Men is they're very consistent, so they can do anything they want.
We love continuity from the X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so on that, the thing about Blade before was that I can't wait to see more Blade. I want there to be Blade. I want there to be a darker side of these Marvel movies where we can delve into the supernatural with, something like Ghost Rider or Moon Knight, but then we can also dive into, horror. I think we've already had, obviously, Werewolf by Night a couple of years ago, and certainly hinted at like the monsterverse within Marvel, but I want Blade. And I want because I love the Wesley Snipes movies, less so the third one, but whatever. But where vampires, Blade existed in his own world, his own universe, and that there were no other heroes kicking around. Vampires were like a scourge on the world. Like, they were very much a thing. Even if they were underground and not many people knew about them, they were everywhere. They're going to have to lessen that, but to some level, we're going to introduce Blade, and it's going to have to be that, hey, for the last 20 years worth of Marvel movies that you've been watching, because we're already at 17, guys, they've been vampires, but they've never attacked one of your heroes. You've never heard of someone being, killed and their jugular gone missing. It's just...
They could pull the multiverse card,
That's probably what they're going to do, and that's what I'm thinking, like, well, what are they going to have done with X-Men, are they going to be so secretive? And we're at that stage where there could just be people with powers kicking about out there that we don't know about, that are mutants that we haven't focused on, and we're only focusing on the stories that are very public, and these giant alien battles where we have got a giant green monster and an alien / god and a super soldier and this guy wearing a mech suit and stuff, whereas you've got little Jimmy who can start fire with his hands, living in Connecticut or something. Well, he's not hurting anybody at this point, and he's hiding it from his parents, so no one knows about it. Like, we could retcon it so that the X-Men have always been there, but to what level? And then the longer it goes on, people are like, well, like, I love it too, because it worked for the original X-Men movies, that Magneto was a young Jewish boy that went through the concentration camps and was part of World War II. I think that's such a strong part of his background. People go, well, you've got to lose that, because he can't be a boy then and then still be like a threat of decent age in 2025 or ongoing. Like, we getting towards... Ian McKellen's a perfect age for that. Like, the man's 85, probably playing 95. It's not working out that well for that anymore. And then I like the idea of you bring in a Giancarlo Esposito and or some other, actor, oh God, what's his name? He actually played the uncle in Black Panther. This Is Us.
Sterling K. Brown.
Sterling K. Brown. He was one thrown up going, if we're going to take away the World War II aspect of it, make it a reflection on a Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
Movement.
Make it a civil rights thing, and have it be a mirror to that, and have two black actors play it.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it if they're going to go that route.
Yeah, and then you're bringing it up 20 years on from World War II, 20 to 30 years on, so you can make the actors be a little bit younger than a Patrick Stewart and an Ian McKellen, and don't have it framed around World War II. Instead, have it framed around the civil rights, and then you still doing what X-Men does best, bringing in your what's the right word I'm looking for? Like bigotry against
against minorities,
minorities
people
and
being
stuff.
Othered,
and but make it something that's a little bit further on, and that would separate it from the Fox movies, and yet still be at its core exactly what those movies were and what the X-Men are. But how do we have them have existed for the last 50 to 70 years in the continuity, and they've just been secretive? I don't know that I want it to be a case of they're from a different universe and then post Secret Wars, everything just gets brought back and molded into one, because that would make sense why the public hate them. They're from a different planet. They're from a different universe, and they've got superpowers. We can't trust them. But I feel like that's just not an easy answer, but it's certainly easier than trying to make it work in the world that we already have and have been living in
I think
for
it would be
17 years.
it would be a delicate balance to try and sell that and actually have it pay off.
I think they'll pull the multiverse card. I think that'd be the easiest way.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying Loki, it'll be a Loki thing, like whatever he calls himself now. What are they calling him? God Loki or whatever it is?
Yeah. The
Something.
time god or whatever he is. Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't seen the
know.
Loki series yet.
Matty will tell you don't bother. I will say it's excellent. Yeah.
Oh, it's not as I don't bother. It's just you have to see it, but at the end of it, you're just like, meh. What else is boring?
I also watched it out of order because I only watched Ant-Man Quantumania 3 weeks ago, and yet it came out 6
In your
months
perfect
before.
storm of viewing.
We've got it. Matty and I
So
will.
would you add Captain America 4 to that? No, you wouldn't. So
No, absolutely. I wouldn't add it to
Exactly.
my. Oh yeah, I wouldn't add it to
I
my.
would take
shit
this
movies list.
over Hulk, over Iron Man 3, over Doctor Strange 1. There'd be a few
Captain
others.
Marvel for
no,
sure.
no.
It's so
I've
funny
got a
'cause-
soft spot for that.
You're saying that against Matty.
It's Brie Larson, isn't it? Take her out of the
No,
equation.
it's Carol Danvers. It's Carol Danvers. Brie Larson I can take or leave, but Carol Danvers.
See, we're saying that about Marvel, whereas I've heard reviews the last couple of days because I'm just listening to everybody talk about this movie because I'm so fascinated about the discourse around it. And people have went, how can you say this is one of Marvel's worst when Multiverse of Madness exists and this exists? And whereas Matty,
so
like,
good.
we were doing a review a couple of months ago and you looked at me dead in the eye. I thought you were having me on, not because I necessarily disagree with you, but because you were looking deep into my soul and you said, Multiverse of Madness is a masterpiece, and I was like,
Did I say masterpiece?
Well, it was like essentially that. It was like it's excellent. Like,
I really liked it.
Yeah.
It's better than Doctor Strange 1.
sure, like yeah,
And if anyone whinges about the quote unquote inconsistencies between WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness, clearly you didn't watch the post credit scene in WandaVision.
yeah,
That'd be me.
Rhys,
That'd be me.
And you don't understand what the Darkhold is.
yeah.
Don't even know.
Well, go back and treat yourself in hindsight.
You-
And then
see,
you haven't seen Doctor
'cause
Strange 2?
You no.
Okay, there you
You
go.
told
Yeah.
me that don't watch certain ones because they weren't in order. So then I was just like, I'm writing them all off. Not watch a single one.
I can't
Blame
remember.
Mitch.
No, if
Blame
anything, I would have
Mitch.
said, you know what? First time around, watch it in release order. That's what I
Yes,
probably would have said.
I would
You
agree.
did.
Yeah.
And I said,
And
I'm
also,
not watching them again.
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, Rhys's list was put together. It was like all of Marvel. So you're like watching.
Yeah.
You're watching Captain America: The First Avenger, Captain Marvel, and then like X-Men 1. And I'm like, oh no, what are you doing? No,
no.
just
I'd
stick
already-
to MCU.
I'd
No,
already-
but you were so far into
yes,
it.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because I had already watched Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had seen all the X-Men up until the new ones.
Yeah.
So I just did a whole rewatch of them separately, like
Hmm.
on a different time.
Yeah.
So that was fine. I didn't rewatch them in the Marvel Cinematic World. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And Deadpool isn't even in the Marvel universe yet, so you don't really need to watch.
Yeah. That's like an event film that you can just watch that.
Is he coming into is he going to be an Avenger?
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. I don't think I would be surprised if he does. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because I think that's where it seems like it's setting up because they own the character now. But if they don't do it again, they don't make that movie again, I'll also not be surprised because it was a farewell to the Fox Universe thing. And
You want someone
know.
anti-president? Get Deadpool in your Avengers team.
that would be fun. That would be a fun way.
Deadpool for new Captain America.
Yeah. So a lot of the stuff post Endgame, people are like, okay, look, they were going towards multiversal stuff with Kang, and then for a number of different reasons it didn't work out. People didn't buy in straight away. Jonathan Majors ran into some serious legal trouble. A lot of stuff went against it, so they had to try and pivot away. All of a sudden, we're heading towards Secret Wars a lot earlier than we otherwise probably would have. Certainly bringing in Doom or a variant of Doom, whatever. A lot of the complaints the last couple of years have been around the fact that there's not enough connective tissue, which can bring down some of these movies when they just try to tie it in too much. Now, this one, like we've been joking about, it might be a loose ends movie because they're tying off stuff from The Incredible Hulk, from Eternals, from the Captain America films, from Avengers stuff, from TV shows, whatever. But at the same time, I want to say it's the most, obviously for those reasons, but even just as a narrative, it feels the most connected. And it was then getting towards the end. It's like, how are you wrapping it up? And I know Rhys said you expected, because of that line at the start, you expected there to be like almost the end of Age of Ultron, where you had Cap standing there in the middle of Avengers headquarters going, all right, Avengers, and Scarlet Witch is
Yeah, I was
there.
waiting for the music.
Yeah,
You know?
that Cap very much
Straight
his
into the
new batch
music.
of Avengers. Thor's not there because he's ducking off doing his own thing. Hulk's went off into space or something. It's like, okay, here's our new team. I'm not going to say assemble, cut to black. That we were going to get something similar but far smaller at the end of this movie. We don't get that. Cap is Cap. He knows that. Falcon's going to keep training and be like the sidekick that he wants to be. But then we get the post-credit scene where you have Cap walking past to see the leader and go, fuck you, man. Plan didn't work. Sucks shit. And him then going, well, if you thought that was the end, you're even dumber than I thought because I've seen everything. And
That's verbatim quote. What Mitch
yeah,
just said.
absolutely.
That's exactly what
pretty,
he says.
Pretty sure I did the accent perfectly as well. And him there going, oh yeah, well when you have to fight the others, like the data, all the stats are saying in my head, you wait until you fight the others because they're coming. And I'm like, okay, hang on, I can fully see that you can predict what Ross might do and what these other soldiers might do and what different warring nations are going to do and all this based on the information that you have at hand. What info do you know about that you could possibly sit here and predict a multiversal war between multiple Earths, whether it happened on Battle World or whatever or not? How do you possibly know that? That is just there as sequel bait or Avengers bait for people that don't know what we know, that aren't reading stuff, right? Or aren't as in depth on the background stuff. And Maddie and I, like, we love this stuff and have been watching it. And Maddie knows a lot more about the comics and the cartoons and stuff. We're not that rich on the comics. We haven't been like knee deep in comics for 20 or 30 years or
So
anything.
why did he say it like this was like, whoa, we've not had any intergalactic, like the Guardians of the Galaxy exist.
Yeah.
Like we know.
Yeah.
All the aliens come down to Earth. He said it like it was meant to be this. And then Anthony Mackie's like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Like, are you joking?
That's what I mean. I'm like, it just felt so out of place. And I'm sitting there going, oh, this is another scene where these two actors weren't even in the same room because they thought about this after going,
Yes.
this
Well,
is part of the
because-
recorrect and we need you to film this scene so that we can get away from multiversal stuff and the Kang stuff and push more towards multiversal Doom Secret Wars stuff.
That was the one moment where I realized it was a reshoot because it means, like, in universe, that means Sam took multiple trips to the raft because the first time he was in the raft talking to President Ross, he still had his arm in a sling. But then in the post-credit scene when he's talking to the leader,
I didn't notice
he's
that.
in a different outfit and doesn't have his sling on.
Oh.
So that means time had to have passed
Yeah.
for him to heal before he went back and spoke to the leader. Granted, maybe the leader might have been going through
I think
his
that's
legal
a-
battles
that's
and
a
stuff like
whoopsie.
that.
But that's a big trip to make, right?
There's
Yeah,
no way
true.
6 months later
Yeah.
he goes, I'm going to tell him.
Yeah,
I got
yeah,
him."
exactly, right?
And make a phone
And
call at
then-
that point, right? FaceTime him.
Yeah, and then the cop-out saying the others, well, it's like, well, we've already had a character called, well, not sort of on screen called the other, but the little five-handed guy that was kind of like in charge of the Chitauri, that was like Thanos's little side bitch on the asteroid that Ronan snapped his neck in Guardians of the Galaxy, that guy was called the other.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like we've already had the other.
I was
kind of
very
thing.
just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a collective, groan in the, because we were like,
It was a cop-out,
because
yeah.
they did, you know what I hate? They do your main credits and then just do your post credit. No, we had to sit through the entire credits. I was like, you made us sit through all that for this.
Yeah, it was the equivalent of watching that the ant playing the drums at the end of Ant-Man and Wasp, where you were like,
Oh, I don't know if it was
really?
that bad. Like you made me sit through for this, but at the same time it was a bit like...
It was just because they said the others, and I'm like, well, give us more than that.
Yeah.
So, given that we know Thunderbolts is next, hell, maybe Thunderbolts will be the thing that gives us the Avengers coming together thing.
See,
that
that's
we
what I
need.
thought as well. Maybe they're the new
Um,
Avengers.
Because I can't see the Thunderbolts giving us a post-credit scene that is going to lead into Fantastic Four. I can't figure that being a thing.
Unless they just go back to old school Marvel where it's like, it doesn't need to connect to the movie you just watched. We're just showing you a scene from the next thing to come.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
When do
we'll
we
see.
get what happens in Anchorman where all the news stations come together? When do we get Guardians and then Thunderbolts and then Fantastic
They start
Four?
filming Avengers Doomsday in 2 months.
as they said in Endgame, is this everybody? This isn't enough.
We've run out of studio time. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks. Maddie and I are going to be talking some Daredevil.
Oh,
and we're
yeah.
going to start gearing up for Thunderbolts. That is next up. That is in May. And I'm now that I've broken down Captain America Brave New World, I'm going to go and treat myself to watch the Thunderbolts Super Bowl trailer because I heard that it was pretty good. So we'll catch you again in a couple of weeks. Rhys, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
No, it's okay.
You want to come back again? Or?
Well, you said it was a bit loserish that I was coming into work on my day off.
No, you said that. You asked if it was. I said, no, it isn't. It's loserish that you tell people you're going to go and talk about Captain
We've
America
both-
for 2 hours.
We've both done it.
Yeah,
Both done it.
Please. I come here on the weekends. Like, don't feel bad.
Get into geek.